So the fallout from Moses ITAUMA beating Dillian White, everyone is now talking about it. But a thing that I need to mention and want to talk about is I saw this moments before the fight was about to start. I saw it moments before the bell rang. I was on Instagram going through stories and stuff. Then I see Sonny Edwards say that he got a call earlier on in the day saying that White's leg was screwed and injured. And he then said he was looking at the ring walk and that didn't look convincing, which I agree with. I'm not saying, I feel like he was not too confident. I don't think he was confident at all. He didn't do his usual wolf howl or anything like that. I feel like he looked like an unsure and shaken man before the fight even started. That's what I think. I feel like he looked a very unsure and shaken man who was there for a final payday. White always kind of walks with a limp, to be honest. And I feel like, though, in the ring, his feet have always looked like they're bloody being stuck in the mud the whole bloody time, though, haven't they? That's the thing. So it's always difficult, looking at that. Because, look, I was watching the fight, and after I saw that, I was looking at the legs of Dillian White. And, of course, they weren't under him. When was the last time White had his legs under him anyway, though? So, the moment the bell rang, after what I saw from Sonny Edwards, it was in my mind that, yeah, he's going to fall. And when he did get dropped, he got up and he stumbled backwards badly. It might have been on the bad leg, something like that. Pressure was on it. But look, again, when you get hurt, though, and your equilibrium goes, you are going to be all over the place like that. When you get caught on the top of the head, then you get caught on the chin, when you're getting hit with so many quick shots, your equilibrium is going to go. You're going to be all over the place like Dillian White was. So I can't say, yes, he was all over the place based on that injury. I can't say he lost because of the injury. But because I don't have those full on answers, I can make assumptions, like saying, like, it was very strange how Dillian White wanted to box with Moses ITAUMA. That's what he was doing. Came out with his cross guard, looking to box, stand in front of ITAUMA and box, which I found strange. It might be because White didn't have the confidence to go forward in case he'd land banned on his leg, in case something happens to an injured leg, possibly. That's why I didn't want to put the pressure on Moses ITAUMA going forward. He didn't really look like he wanted to move at all, apart from when Moses was just pushing him backwards. But the thing is, though, is White was in shape coming into this fight, some of the best shape that we've ever seen him in, and that is obvious to say, that is obvious to see. But he might be training really hard. He looking like clearly he was. I don't think it's a matter of he couldn't be asked, but I feel like it's a matter of he probably took the fight and on the day probably knew he was going to lose. Cashed out, took the fight. He didn't want to say he was injured because, he's pulled out of many fights in the past. He wants money. He needs money. He obviously wanted to take that. It was possibly a career biggest payday for him in that fight against ITAUMA, one of the career highest paydays for Dillian White against ITAUMA. Money that he couldn't refuse. So it's like, if he pulled out, he wouldn't have got that. That's another fight that he's pulled out of. More money that he hasn't been able to get, and more money that he's missed out on. I reckon he had a good camp, possibly last week or two. Something must have happened to his leg or something like that. Again, this is just assumptions. I don't know, but I'm assuming that's probably what happened, because he looked like he trained hard. It's not like he arrived like an absolute fat pudding in there with a leg injury. Because that's like, but no, that's it. It's different circumstances. Unless it was just made up, I don't see why it would come out, and why the likes of Sonny Edwards is hearing about it, and why we're hearing about it from other kind of boxing journalists as well, talking about it, other news reports coming out about it all. About the whole leg injury for Dillian White. I don't get why it would be lies, but again, when you watch someone like Dillian White, it is very hard to tell if he has got a leg injury or not because of the way he moves. He literally is stuck no matter what. Like his feet are bloody nailed in to the canvas and he can't move. You know, so it's hard to tell whether he does have a leg injury or not because he always looks like he has a leg injury or something, or that he just can't move because his feet are so static in there. So it's always hard to say that, but I mean, I don't see why it would come up for no reason. I mean, he might have stumbled because of his injury leg, but it was most likely because he was getting hit all over, lots of different places on the head for most of the ITAUMA, because there was so much unpredictability there. But look, if he was injured, very clearly just decided to cash out. And I feel like that's a narrative that a lot of people are going by now. And it makes sense. I mean, look, it ended in the first round. And when something ends in the first round, first 2 rounds, you know, there's always going to be suspicions of things. And when there was the fact something came out with what Sonny Edwards said before the fight, moments before it started, and he wasn't convinced by the ring walk, and the ring walk wasn't convincing from Dillian White at all, to be honest. I feel like loads of people knew it was a bit off when he didn't come out and do his wall pow. Confidence levels was gone. I mean, he was trying to play every game in the book, though, making ITAUMA wait for about 10 minutes in the ring, but nothing worked whatsoever. He was just a man with not much charisma in the week. You know, you look and see Dillian White always has charisma in fight weeks, but I just feel like looking back now, it's like he was somewhat. He might have came across unsure of himself. I mean, look, I thought he was going to win the fight, but you know, you just look at it in hindsight, and that it's completely different, though, isn't it? But watching the fight and the moment before the fight, especially when you hear these things about an injury, the fight ending in the first round, it's like it's very possible that there was. It's very possible that there was. But yeah, look, Moser the ITAUMA wins. Moser the ITAUMA. You know, I've said many times I feel Moser the ITAUMA. He's absolutely excellent. Honestly, unbelievable. But from Dillian White, I think he's always going to have problems now, especially at his age. He looks like he's been having problems for a while. I think that's got to be it for him. I think it's got to be it. Anyway, thank you for watching.